Is everything done for a purpose?
Is it the destiny? It's your destiny, Luke. That goes into the idea of God has arranged everything, God decides everything, and you're just along for the ride. God's will is like a freight train. I use the example of a freight train full of lead going 100 miles an hour, and it's going the way it's going. No humanity's actions are going to affect what this God has assigned because it is the destiny of everything. We call that sovereignty. God is sovereign. Notice where I put the word. I put the word under the jerk, tyrant, father, husband type like that. Why? Because I don't want to be married to a guy like that. I definitely don't want to have him as my dad. And if the creator of the universe behaved that way, I think I would have to join the Luciferian rebellion and try to become one of the rebel bases against the evil empire. Star Wars, right? Now, let's be graceful and see why that idea is presented. Why is it that a large portion of these religions believe in destiny and that God is sovereign? You don't want a universe where everything is up in the air, okay? You need a guide, you need a pilot in the captain's chair of the plane, okay? You need a captain in the boat. The universe needs one guy to run the place. When push comes to shove, we need one God. We need one God to rule and to run the place. However, even though he has full authority and full power, and he is sovereign, if you want to be categorized as a loving father, I understand you got all the money and you got all the physical strength over the 10-year-old kid. But if you want to be categorized as a loving father, you are actually now limited to what you can and cannot do. That's the part that everybody says, oh, no, that's impossible. You are now limiting God. No, I'm not limiting God. God, the minute he decides to create other beings in his image, even animals, by the way, notice he cares a lot about the feelings of animals. He cares about the feelings of animals, which means that if God makes an animal just so that he could whip him and beat him for fun, God has now lost his status as loving God. He might have the authority to make that animal. He might have the power to make that animal. But if he's not sensitive to that animal's pain or pleasure, he's lost the definition of a loving God. And he's now a tyrant. So, what is that? Does that answer the question? Is everything done for a reason? What was exactly the question? Does God have a plan?
Is everything done for a purpose?
Is everything done for a purpose? I don't know. Did I answer the question?
Next question.
All right.
Are there any things we should fear?
There's one thing you should fear. The scriptures, every time the word fear is used in the scriptures, it's always don't, except for one thing. So in effect, Jehovah agrees with Nike, except for there's one commandment where you're actually ordered to fear. You're supposed to fear one guy, one being, that guy, the boss. You have to recognize that you're here and that he's here. In fact, children are supposed to fear their father. It's a respect, but it's also a fear. When Daddy walks in the room, the exaggeration of that was Sound of Music. You know the scene I'm talking about? But there was something that was kind of beautiful about the scene. Because, do you remember the one kid who screws up? He did not have, he knew that his dad loved him and his dad was going to be graceful for him. In fact, the dad started laughing. You remember what I'm talking about? That's a healthy fear of your father. And that's the only thing you're supposed to fear, nothing else. Because once you have a guy who is all powerful and he is all loving and loves me, once you got a dad like that, what are you afraid of? That you're not going to eat? Notice that when you have a dad that knows what he's doing, the kids are extremely confident. They'll go up there and they'll pick up a rattlesnake. And they couldn't care less because they know that, hey, if this is bad, Dad will take care of it. They're extremely brave. They're courageous. They're confident. They're beautiful. That's what you're supposed to. That's what you're supposed to do, and you will do that. You will get those attributes if you fear your Creator. And the opposite is also true. The fear, the anxiety, the feeling that, oh my God, we're on this planet. It's going to overheat. It's going to cool off. We're going to freeze to death. There's a meteor that's going to hit the planet. What are we going to do? See, all these people who do not have a loving, all-powerful Creator that they're submitting to, they have to go to bed worrying about the planet getting hit by a meteor. They have to worry about global warming and global cooling and global famine, and that there's not enough hot water, and that there's not enough cold water, and there's not enough oxygen. They have all these global problems that the earth is somehow going to shift off of the axis. I sleep like a baby at night knowing that the earth is not going to shift off its axis. They got a loving Father who's got it in his hands. And I sleep as good as my kids sleep. They don't worry about somebody breaking into the house because Daddy's on guard. They don't worry about what they're going to eat tomorrow because Daddy's worrying about it. They're happy and they're peaceful.
Fear to get sick, and you know that your dad is not.
To the extent that you don't trust your daddy, to the extent that your dad cannot fix cancer, like, yeah, if my kid gets cancer, I'm like, sorry, son, you got to die. To the extent that I cannot take care of the problem, then that gives you a reason to be anxious. However, as a kid, as you grow up, you're supposed to transfer that reliance on your earthly father. By the time you're 2 and 3 or 4, 10, 11, 12, you're supposed to be transferring that reliance to your heavenly Father. You understand? So the 3-year-old kid might have fear of getting sick because, like, Dad can't fix me. But if you're 20 years old or 30 years old and you're afraid of getting sick, what that shows is that you haven't transferred your faith to your heavenly Father. You don't trust him. Said another way, you do not trust your heavenly Father that he's going to take care of it, or that if you do get cancer, it's actually the right thing, that's what's supposed to happen. All fear is based on lack of faith. I didn't say we're not talking about cancer, we're talking about the fear. Fear is equivalent to no faith. It's a faith killer. It's the opposite of. Fear comes in, faith goes out. Faith comes in, fear goes out. You understand? It's in verse, they cannot be together in the same room. One will totally push the other one out. To the degree that you are fearful about anything, make a list of whatever you're afraid of. The boogeyman, the Bears, the Chargers not winning the game. I don't know. To whatever it is that you are afraid of, to that extent is what you are not trusting your all-powerful Heavenly Father to take care of. And by the way, notice that this kingdom is based on fear of everything. Satan feeds you fear like French bread. He loves fear. It's extremely powerful. It's extremely easy to manipulate human beings by using fear. So he'll get you to be afraid of everything. He'll get you to be afraid. If you're white, he'll get you to be afraid of the black guy. If you're black, he'll get you to be afraid of the white guy. Environmental reasons, he'll get you to be afraid of throwing a Pepsi can into a what do you call the dump? A landfill. Now think of that. Aluminum comes from the ground, right? So theoretically, when you put it in a landfill, you're recycling it. However, we're not taught that. We're taught that if you throw an aluminum can back into a landfill, that now the earth is going to implode. And you are fearful, and you create anxiety over a Pepsi can.
Next question. How do you act like a good Christian and uphold God's law without being judgmental?
How do we uphold law without being judgmental? How do we uphold law and still be loving? Well, how does a loving father do it? How does a loving husband do it? How would you like your father to have done that to you? He had law and he had grace and mercy. If you were the wife, picture yourself as the wife and you're married to this husband, how would you like him to do it to you? If you actually go through that mental exercise, I think you can start seeing where love brings you. I could give you examples of what not to do. Read the question again.
How do you act like a good Christian and uphold God's law without being judgmental?
How do you act like a good Christian? Already over there I'm thinking, well, you're not a good Christian, so you have to act like you're a good Christian. And now you have a problem because like, I know that I'm a selfish person, but I'm trying to act like I'm not. And now, when you are into that selfish mode, it is extremely important for you to find fault in others. It becomes an essential part of your ingredients, because in order for your equation to balance, in order for me to be up here, I need you to be down here. So judgmentalism is fundamental with pride. Okay? I have to
put you down to make myself
higher. That's right.
The other thing is that people will project their own badness onto others, and they see what's really in their own heart.
Because I know, if I'm weak at something, I'll recognize it in you. If I'm a drunkard, I'll immediately spot out the other drunkard in the room, and I will project that out. So those are all signs of unrighteous, unholy, unloving people. Because the most loving guy that ever walked the planet, this guy, he didn't have a problem. He was not judgmental. As much as he loved the law and he upheld the law, he fulfilled the law. There's one word that you would never use to describe him would be judgmental. Isn't that weird? How could a perfect being like that love the law and not be judgmental? Yeah, it goes into the take the beam out of your eye before you can talk about taking the toothpick out of mine. You see, going back to the pride problem, the problem with pride is that you think that you're here when you're really here. And notice it doesn't really matter where you are. If a 3-year-old thinks that he's got the authority of a 6-year-old, he's prideful, okay? Now, if Warren Buffett comes in here and says, yeah, I'm a rich man, I wouldn't say that that's prideful or arrogant, okay? But the minute you bring yourself higher than where you really are in God's ranking of things, now you've just entered the world of prideful and arrogant. And that's why it's so easy to use this with nations or with race or with your family or with your sex or with your culture, because you could easily try to elevate it higher than where it actually belongs. Of course. Absolutely. The idea that we're not supposed to judge anything, that's absolute nonsense. If you don't judge between the difference in red and green, you won't make it home tonight. So I highly recommend judging. If we don't know how to judge, we don't know who to throw in jail and who to throw out. A police officer that has no judgment is useless. The entire characteristics of Jesus, that he comes as a judge when he comes back to set up his 1,000-year reign, that is exactly why we're promoting an idea of thou shalt not judge. What we're really saying is, thou shalt not judge us. Humanity does not want to be judged by this guy. We want to judge ourselves under our own terms. We know we've broken his laws, and the last thing we want is to be found guilty. That's why we come up with the idea of thou shalt not judge. But a loving father is judging things all the time. A loving husband judges things all the time. A mom that knows what she's doing is making judgments all the time. You literally couldn't get up and start your car without judgments. Everything you do requires judgment. Judgmental is when you see the error in the other person, but you don't see it in yourself. And usually, his error is this big, and yours is this big, and you see his really, really clearly, but you don't see yours. I think that's the definition of a judgmental person. Yeah. So when in doubt, leave the judging to God. At least when you're starting to condemn other people. Get out of the condemning business. Judging what's right or not, falling in love with God's laws, everybody should be a lawyer. To the extent that we fall in love with that creator, people that live in my house, my kids know that, hey, we can't eat strawberries, on top of the white carpet. There's a law, and the kids that love me obey that law, and there's not a problem. Everybody enjoys the nice, clean white carpet. I enjoy it, they enjoy it. It's part of the kingdom, and it's awesome. Laws don't create problem. We love laws. Laws is what generates nice, clean white carpets. So this idea that we are under the age of grace, which we are, does not mean in any way that it is a lawless time in society.
Well, how about in a world that is fallen and you have, you live in the United States, which is, arguably the best country to live in, but even still, you have, especially more recently, things that should be evil that are not being called evil, that they're being called good. How do you still maintain the line of being, a Christian, so to speak, or, okay, yes, I believe in the Bible, but when you tell somebody that, the Bible believes in, there's the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, you want to go kill all the gay people? Is that what you're telling me? Maybe that was...
What they're saying is, you don't love gay people, do you? You want to kill them all, don't you? And, by the way, if that's in your heart, if you hate gay people, then they're right. You are being judgmental. See, we're supposed to hate the sin, but you're supposed to love people. So we hate homosexuality, but we don't hate the homosexuals. We hate the pagan Christians. No, we hate pagan Christianity, but we don't hate Christians. We hate Buddhism because of the destruction that it causes to society, but we don't hate Buddhists. We don't like homosexuality because it takes 30 years off of your life. That's why we don't like smoking, because it takes 8 to 10 years off of your life. So you don't want your kid to smoke because you want him to live those 10 years. But the minute you start looking at the person, oh, he is an inferior human being because he's now smoking, and I, of course, went up a notch, to whatever degree that he went down a notch, you understand the way it works? Now you're into the judgmental phrase. You are not loving that person. You're actually kind of happy that he's doing whatever sin he's doing. Because in comparison to when I put myself around, it makes me look good. Yeah.
I was thinking about that passage where the Romans, that Jesus is being asked to judge the Romans, the oppressors. And he's like, no, pay Caesar what's due Caesar. In other words, I'm not in that business.
I'm not in that business. Not today. Not today. I'm not in that business today. I'm going to be in that business this day. But today, I'm not here for that. He told that to his mom when his mom's like, hey, we got a wine shortage. Can you fix the problem? He's like, yeah, I can fix the problem, but I'm not really here for that. And then, of course, he whipped out the mercy card and said, okay, Mom, I'll take care of it.
Another judging question. How do we justly and necessarily judge without becoming a parochial Pharisee?
Well, put yourself as the sinner. What are you judging? Are you judging the smoker? Are you judging the liar, the rapist, whatever? Find out whatever crime you have and imagine that you did it. How would you want to be judged? Start with that. Again, put yourself in the position of the wife. She's not as physically strong as the husband. So how would you want? Would you want him to get into a fist fight with you? No. We call that, spousal abuse. So a judge is a person in authority and power. He has authority and power that you do not have. Well, reverse the roles. If you had the authority, how would you like to be dealt with if you were the judgee? Judgeor?
Jesus described it though when he said, even if you've looked at a woman with lust, you've committed adultery. So basically,
He was getting upset when they're like, hey, well, this woman's been caught in adultery, Moses says we got to kill her. What do you say? That whole thing was a trap, because if he said, let her go, well, then he's against the law of Moses. If he says, kill her, well, then you're not as merciful and as forgiving as everybody said you are. There was a trap. It had nothing to do with adultery. It had nothing to do with that woman. Because notice, where's the guy in the whole soup? Why did he get off scot-free? The whole thing was a setup. So what did he do? His answer was, okay, let's go with the judgment thing. I'm not going to judge it because I didn't see it. Whoever's got no sin, throw the first stone. So notice, it was a perfect way of fulfilling the law. He didn't condone adultery. And it was a perfect way of fulfilling the law of forgiveness too. Now, read the question again.
How do we justly and necessarily judge without becoming a parochial Pharisee?
Okay, the parochial Pharisee, it's always got to do with that I can do no wrong. My family, my culture, my race, my nation, my religion, my status is better than your status. My religion is better than your religion. I'm a high-level priest, you're a low-level laity person. The minute you start elevating yourself above others, you're getting dangerously close to being Pharisaical. That was the danger of the Pharisees.
and Jesus actually said, Matthew 7:1, do not judge or you will be judged. So we're commanded not to judge.
He's highlighting the fact that, hey, right now you might be in a position of you're the judge, but there's going to come a day where you're going to be the judged. And then he tells you, and by the way, whatever standard you used when you had the authority, I'm going to go ahead and use that standard when I judge you. That's a big key. Exactly.
So the Pharisees thought it's only going one way.
It's only
He's
going
God's coming back at you.
That's right.
And they made up all kinds of commands that had nothing to do with God's law.
613 got turned into 6,013. Because the more commandments you make, the more people become law breakers, the more authority you have over them, because you are a dispenser of law. The Pharisees obeyed the law. Not really, but they gave you the impression they did. So that brought you lower, brought them higher. That was the whole business.
Then can you go the other way with that and say, well, I don't want to be judged, so I'm not going to do anything?
What do you mean, like the church today? Yes. You can go the other way. I judge nobody. Nobody judges me. You make a deal. I see no evil on your dish, and you see no evil on my dish. One hand washes the other. That is much more prevalent in our circles. If you're in the Orthodox Jewish circles, you might be talking about legalism. But in our circles, we've taken grace and turned it into a license to sin. It's lasciviousness by definition. It's in what?
It's in wisdom. In having wisdom, we're told to have wisdom.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be a judge of things because it's your responsibility and you have a duty to have that responsibility. But you also, and back to the love and law. It has to be balanced out.
Yeah. Wise as serpents and harmless as doves.
Yeah, but it's got to be both.
I think the balance is to love the other person. If you do not talk about the other person, you have no authority or permission to judge that soul.
Go back. There's only two religions in the universe. There's the one where you love others and you love Jehovah, and there's the one where you love yourself and you don't care about other people's pain and pleasure. You only care about yourself. Those are the.
Go ahead. What if the reason you're trying to correct someone is you love them?
Or is it because you want them to feel like dirt so that I could feel like?
Yeah. So I've had a legal relationship with my partner for years where, it makes him feel better if he can judge you, condemn you. And I just tolerate it. But to me, it's a bad habit. And that's Pharisaiism.
Yes.
So if you said it in love, if you were trying to help somebody, then you're trying to bring them closer to God. That's not Pharisaism.
When Jesus talked to the woman at the well, he was judging left and right. I mean, you're doing, he was flinging out the judgments like, you ever see Fred Flintstone when he eats? But it was not being judgmental, he was being loving. And she recognized it right away. She went home and told her husband, dude, I found a dude that's awesome. Okay, you got to come meet this guy. If he was judgmental, she would have left with, see you later, and I hope I never see you again. That would have been the difference. It would not have been bring the whole town over to meet the guy.
Jonah, right? So God tells him to go judge Nineveh, and he's actually excited.
Because he doesn't love Nineveh. He wants to see the fire and brimstone come down and annihilate these people. He's looking for that. Yeah. God's, on the other hand, he actually had a heart for the Ninevites. As wicked as they were, he was waiting and wanting them to repent. And he was happy when they repented, and Jonah was sad. Even the animals, because animals are sentient beings. They have feelings, so God cares about them. In order for you to have a kosher animal, you have to kill them in a humane way. If you make the animal suffer, you can't even eat the thing. That's how sensitive this being is to pain. That's how sensitive this being is to pain. Now, of course, we go around and we tell people that if you don't do what he says, he's going to throw you in hell for a billion years, and you won't even be halfway done with your sentence. So animals, they get to die with no pain. But a human being that's a rebel, he doesn't get that luxury. He's got to suffer forever and ever and ever. And the idea behind that is that here's the last one we heard, we are made in God's image, and because we are made in God's image, we have a soul and a spirit and a body, and a spirit is eternal. Because we're made in God's image, God has a spirit, spirits live forever, therefore you live forever. And the minute that you make the human being live forever, now you have to put him somewhere. If he's a selfish pee-pee, prodigal, what do you have? Prideful prodigal, the pee-pee. Don't be a pee-pee. If you're a prideful person and you have to live forever, notice that forces me with the idea of an eternal hell and torment in hell. You see, once you buy into an idea of an eternal soul or eternal spirit, you've created a problem that you cannot fix now. And then we dance around it because it sounds totally cruel and unusual to do that. So he's like, well, it's it's absence from God. It's eternal separation. Okay, what does that mean? It means that you're burning in hell for eternity in agony and misery and pain and suffering. That's what it means. You just don't want to say it. But that's what we believe and that's what we've been teaching. So I'm taking the position that is a blatant violation of God's character, and that in nowhere in the scriptures did he ever say that. He did say that hell exists. He did say that evil will be punished, never torture. That is something that only the other side does. Our side never tortures anybody. As a matter of fact, torture is the first sign that you belong to this kingdom. Okay? Torture is the first sign that you're in jail in North Korea and not in Carlsbad.
Isn't there like a verse in the Bible where it says that the guy sees, Abraham, that sees people suffering?
Yeah.
Isn't that torture?
No. Suffering is not torture. It's completely different. You gotta get that through your head. Because I know that today we're taught that waterboarding people is a military necessity. But 20, 30 years ago, that was actually against American law. Nobody would have ever done that. But today we're accepting the idea of torture like, you torture somebody. You have to torture somebody to save the building, you torture them. No problem. Move on. Next. See, we've desensitized ourselves to torture. Did you ever see, was it Dick Cheney? Vice, were they interviewing him on his opinion of waterboarding? And he was flinging it out like, Sacha Baron Cohen made actually a joke. He got a water jug and got him to sign it. Think of this. As he was doing it, Sacha Baron Cohen he's a liberal, he's a lefty. He was doing it as a joke. But the conservative, right-wing, holy Republican, God-fearing man, he endorsed the empty water jug as a trophy of the waterboarding that happened in Iraq. You understand what I'm saying? The guy was so desensitized to it. He thought he was being cool. Yeah, I'll like an author endorses his book, he signed the water jug. You see what I mean? That's not God's character. Nothing in the scriptures make God look like that. Every time he kills people, and he does kill people, it's always done swiftly and humanely.
So what about the verses that talk about the gnashing of the teeth, the fire, the burning, a drop of water? That to me sounds like
punishment.
Well, lots of pain.
There is pain. I didn't say there's no pain. I didn't say there's no hell. I said there's a hell for 1,000 years. I mean, that's a long time. I don't want to go there. I don't want to. You think that the people are at that scene or at that judgment? You think they're not going to be weeping? You think they're not going to be gnashing their teeth? There's going to be weeping and gnashing of the teeth.
Like the unbeliever will say, your God tortures people. How do you separate the two?
How do you separate punishment from torture? Well, look at it. What do you do to your kids? You punish your kids. You don't torture your kids. Okay? We punish our criminals. We don't torture our criminals. North Korea does that. So there's
Michael. In most cases, right, fear of punishment is supposed to deter you and also maybe cause you to change your ways. But if you go to hell and you're being punished, is there any redemption for you at that point, or you're gone? That's it.
The time for redemption, according to the scriptures, is before you die. There is no opportunity to change your afterwards.
Why not just execute right there? Why do I have to?
Why do you got to pay? Yeah. Because there's an element of justice.
So you're saying it's
It's proportional
proportional?
punishment.
So not everybody gets punished the same amount.
Why would you? If a guy steals a pistachio, or if a guy nukes an entire country, would you spank him to the same degree? I mean, what judge? What father would do that?
We were all raised with. I was raised with the idea that one tiny little sin is rebellion against God. It's the same as any other sin, no matter how big, because it's still rebellious heart. That's the ultimate,
Okay, so the guy that steals the pistachio at Albertsons and the guy that robs Fort Knox, the judge assigns the same sentence to both. What will we do with a judge like that? Yeah, that judge is nuts. He's got no understanding of right and wrong.
Could the weeping and gnashing of teeth be self-inflicted because of the realization of the punishment? Meaning,
by the way, you are punished forever. The fact that you get thrown into a lake of fire and you get annihilated after 1,000 years of watching all this happen, your punishment has eternal consequences. The idea of not existing anymore is absolutely terrifying to anybody that loves life. But it is eternal. It is eternal. The punishment is eternal. But don't take that and turn it into eternal torment, eternal torture. God doesn't torture even for a second. He does punish. He doesn't torture. Get the distinction very loud and clear. It's one of the ways that we have been misrepresenting God's character, and the secular humanists are laughing at us all the way to the bank by saying, wow, your God, he's a tyrant. Either do it his way or the highway. Not our God. This guy woos you. He's been chasing this girl for 6,000 years. He's going out of his way to and she hasn't even been really nice, but he still tries. He's working. He's wooing, and he's courting her. He's going out of his way. He's a lovable dude. The question is, why aren't you saying yes to him? Why aren't you getting married to him? What's wrong with you? That's what you should be thinking. Not, I'm not sure I want to get married to him because he might be a jerk.
One more question. When did Jesus become divine? Was it when he was born or when he was baptized and the dove descended upon him?
That's a good question. I've been thinking about it a lot, actually. Well, let's define the terms. What do you mean by divine?
How you
We're looking at you.
Right there, on the chart.
Well,
when did he go from human to angelic or divine? When did that happen?
well, I mean, my off the cuff, I guess that's what I learned in Catholic grade school, is that he was both. He was 100% of both, you know, in all eternity and in all forever. He never started. You know, there's one thing that Satan has that Jesus doesn't have. It's a birthday. Okay, so I think his existence has been forever in that direction and in the future. I look at Jesus as a just like you look at the burning bush. Remember the burning bush that Moses was looking at? Or the whirlwind and the fire and the smoke that was coming out of the temple, or the Balaam's donkey. God takes possession of angels, of humans, of animals. It's the same being in a different form. So when did he take possession of that particular physical body? Well, I guess when he was born, or when the Holy Spirit got Mary pregnant. But 1,000 years before, God is in a physical form having lunch with Abraham. That's why we call him the pre-incarnate Christ. It's just the same being appearing. You know, he's dressed in a tuxedo. Sometimes he's dressed in shorts and flip-flops. You know, sometimes he looks like a beach bum. Sometimes he looks like the king. It's the same guy appearing in different formats.
The devil's advocate, flip it around. What's the harm in the alternative?
What's the alternative?
What's the harm in the alternative? I mean, why would that be less believable? That he's born human, born man. The dove descends on him,
and then God takes possession of him when he got baptized in the Jordan River.
Now he's 50-50 or 100.
That's what the Eastern Orthodox believe.
Okay, but you still have the fact that he didn't have a physical father, so he still is the son of God. Day one, he's the son of God. You got to call him that, right? Okay, so you have a son of God. He doesn't get the full dose of the Holy Spirit until baptism. Age of accountability. So he at the end, you're still describing a half God, half man. You're still describing a pretty special guy that doesn't fit the parameters of any other human being that ever walked the earth.
But if that happens, he immediately meets the Jews' need for completeness of a divine.
The Jews cannot stand the idea of the Messiah being divine in any format.
They can't accept him as born of human, but they can accept if God descended upon him, the age of accountability as a dove. Then it fits.
They still won't give him divinity. As a matter of fact, what gets the Jew to recognize that they went to bed with the wrong guy, what clicks them out of this stupor, is when he sits in the temple and proclaims himself to be God. What's the verse in 2 Thessalonians? Where he actually sits in the temple and proclaims himself to be God. When the Jews see the Antichrist do that, they're going to be like, dude, that guy's claiming divinity. He's not our guy. That actually is protecting them. The fact that they believe that the Messiah is not divine is going to help them recognize the error of this guy. Once they disconnect from this guy, then they could actually see him for who he truly was. So, in general, as far as what I know about Judaism, they cannot stand the idea of the Messiah being divine. They link that with polytheism. Oh, you guys are saying there's two gods. The minute that you put divinity, see what I say, that that God appears as a plant or an animal or a human, the minute that you take him out of this realm, they immediately go, oh, you're polytheistic. Polytheistic. Stop listening. Polytheistic nut job.
Well, but the opposite can be said, because if he was always, and he was basically planted in the woman, and he's always been, well, then you're polytheistic as well, because then that makes the case for, basically the 3 in 1 from the beginning. Whereas if he's born human, God's spirit enters him. Now we're singular. Now one God, one man, God's spirit, goes through existence on this earth with the same suffering as any man, because he's human with God's spirit in him.
I like the fact that he suffered as a man. I don't like when we say that, well, Jesus did all that because he was Superman. He had supernatural power. He was God. So, of course, he did the cross thing and he did all this super. So, in effect, you're taking away the sacrifice that he did as a human.
No, I'm saying it's much greater.
Yes, you augment the fact that he suffered in the flesh.
If I take that position that God descended upon him at the age of accountability, then what he did is even more amazing, because he didn't have any foreknowledge.
Yes, I'll grant you that.
These things happened to him, and he acts divine. He is divine. He becomes divine.
I mean,
how then do you deal with the fact that he was worshipped as a child?
no.
So if you're not divine, you're worshipped. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, we're
His
looking
divinity was recognized by
we're
those
looking
people.
for him to come back. No different. I mean, the expectation was already set.
They were looking
It was
for
already
a
in
savior.
motion. They were looking for him.
Who was the prophet that said, he goes, there was a prophet that wasn't allowed to die until he saw him. Was it Zechariah or somebody? And he prayed to him like he bowed down to that baby like it was God.
But don't forget, they did the same to John the Baptist.
Yeah, but it was highlighted as an error.
But they were thinking that he was the one.
Yes, but it was highlighted as an error. When they bowed down to Jesus at birth, nobody was repudiated.
Also,
I just help with the Greek. The Greek is not worship, it is kneel down. You kneel down to king, you kneel down to an officer, a lieutenant. So this word is only translated as worship when it's started by Jesus. But the same word will be quote homage or some other English word, so you don't realize the same word is used for something that occurs to people who are not divine and people who are. Something to look up. Proskuneo.
I mean, so what? What's the big deal? Let's say that he was divine at birth, he was divine at 6, he was divine at 12, or divine at 30. So what?
Same accomplishment. Well, a little greater, because arguably man fully suffering as a human, and yet, divine, because he's not half God, not half man. He's man.
He's 100%
God's spirit. And maybe that's it.
Hey, don't ask me. I'm just a corn dog salesman, okay? We're getting way above my pay grade. I'm just trying to get people not to be disrespectful and lazy and and apathetic. I'm happy at this. That others, if I could, the joke, the dad goes up to his son and says, son, the two biggest problems in America are apathy and ignorance. And the son's like, no, I didn't know that, Dad, but I really don't care.